We are going to start with a video, which is Zillow's spot called Journey Home.
Remember that house, Mom?
Oh, yeah. One of the first ones we looked at. We've seen so many houses.
You ready to check this one out?
I just kept hoping. I just kept hoping.
So
Why the book
it's bringing in a lot of light.
Nope. We can work with this.
Mom.
Sorry, Lou. We didn't get it.
Loved the kitchen in that one.
Yeah, well, 8 other people love the kitchen too.
It's funny how things work out.
I'm gonna be alright.
This is ours?
So I just kept going. I just kept going, trying to find my way.
Wasn't that like goosebumps worthy? Did you get a chill even though we're on this hot beach? I did. So we are here to talk about how Zillow has used AI to make home buying more human, not less. And we're going to focus on 3 elements of how to use AI for that. So the first is creative, as we just saw, and we'll get a little bit into that. The second is in media, and then the third is in frontline operations. And we're really focused on making this a panel where you could take away practical takeaways. We know there's a lot of like buzzwords in AI. People talk about it at too high conceptual level, in our opinion. So we're really working hard to bring you the goods. Okay, so let's just start, Ravi and Paul, before we get into creative, maybe talk to us about how you think about using AI in your strategy overall, and how do you suss out what's real versus what's hype?
Thanks for having us here, and thanks for hanging out. I know it's almost dinner time, and it's quite hot out there. Appreciate you being here. At Zillow, we believe AI is at its best when it is actually not noticeable and will help both the humans who are actually doing the work and delivering the great experience to customers be even more better than they were before. That to us is central to our strategy. And 3 things that we are focused on to make sure that we keep it real is, can we actually better understand our customers? Data and AI, when they actually help us understand the insights and get to know our customers the best, then we can actually go tell great stories. Customers care when we actually tell great stories. And enabling AI to help us get there is how we are focusing on separating out hype from actual things that can help. Paul?
I love what Ravi, an amazing partner, and as a technology company, I can see it from the inside as a kind of objective observer, how Ravi is encouraging the human to meet the agentic in everything. And it's actually quite surprising, because if you think of Zillow, it was really a technology company at the heart and at the outset. From a personal perspective, I try and translate it into something that my mum would understand. So I kind of say 3 areas, 3 H's. There's hero, applications, hubs, and hygiene. And I think a lot, and I hope it's probably self-explanatory, but just to go through it on a very practical level, a lot of work in the AI world and in agencies and in what we do is hidden from plain sight. And it's been around in media for many, many years, actually. It's just it was kind of hidden, and it's kind of hygiene. A lot of programmatic applications, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But also hygiene is obviously what we want to do as an agency, a services company, is to uplift our staff into new higher value areas. So what can we do that is rote, that we can actually AI build applications that can actually have a benefit to the client, instead of having extra FTEs doing what I would say rote work. I don't want to minimize the importance of that, but we can then uplift it. I call that hygiene, and there's a lot of activity there, so we are absolutely focused on that. Hubs are essentially the kind of enterprise level, and I think a lot of work can be done on interoperability of all the AI tools that we have in our enterprise. We happen to be built quite extensively around the Microsoft, but not limited to that. So how do we obviously then make interoperability in our enterprise level AI? So how can we actually communicate better? How can we share things better? How can we work with clients in a better way? How can we be agnostic while at the same time operating with great efficiency? And I think the industry, as we kind of fragment into lots of areas of AI, we've got to bring it together in the interoperability. We can talk about that. And interoperability can also be actually these walled gardens. So I would say, you know, a hub is Google, a hub is Meta, a hub is Amazon. So how do we actually, you know, they're walled gardens, how do we actually work with them while at the same time working? Hero is when these applications, we're going to talk about something that we think is Hero. Hero solves business problems. Like, what is that nitty problem that we can have, that we can use? And in a way, it can be hygiene, but I like to say it's Hero because it solved a fundamental business problem. So enough, back to you, Ali.
That's a great framework to kick us into the next piece. So we are going to play a video in a second, but Ravi, I thought maybe you could set up why this video is so special.
Yeah, so talking about the practical applications of AI and how you use it in a creative sense, you saw this 90-second spot that we created. It is obviously designed to be very emotional. It tells the story of single mother and her daughter going through the tough journey of finding a home, all the way from searching to getting turned down when their offers don't win, to eventually getting to the home that they love. And that last scene captures the emotion that particular journey actually culminates in. Now, from a creative perspective, we're debating how do we actually create this emotion in a 30-second version, maybe 15-second version. And it was a very, very hard thing to do, because which element of the journey would you not pick, right? So one of the applications that we used was using a series of prompts to the chatbots to figure out a way to summarize it in 30 seconds. And the output that we got, while not perfect, because it requires quite a lot of prompt engineering and then training of our creative teams to get there, we were amazed at how fast it got there. And we do think this is the balance of leveraging tools and technology to help creatives to be at their best when they're telling the story. So if you want, we can play the 30-second
absolutely.
version.
Let's play it.
Remember that house, Mom?
One of the first ones we looked at. We've seen so many houses.
We have.
Nope.
We can work with this.
Pause on the search for a while.
Lou, I know it's been tough, but let's not give up now.
This is ours?
So I just kept going.
Hopefully you can see the same level of emotion that was captured in the 90-second to a 30-second one. And this is an example of how you can customize creative to appeal to different segments of customers. So if you're a first-time home buyer versus if you're a repeat home buyer versus if you're looking for renting a home, you can use these tools to tell that story. So to me, this is a great example of bringing the human into the AI aspect.
And if I could just build on it, I think to give an amazing agency partner of Ravi, 72 and Sunny are great partners of Ravi and obviously of Canvas as well. You saw, I mean, when I see that spot, the 90-second, it always gets me. I'm a bit of a soppy. It's just a beautiful human spot, and you kind of see the emotion and the nuance of that emotion, which I think is done by a great creative agency. And again, repeating what Ravi said, the cut down has that emotion that came from the human, but it was, you know, it was that evolution of then using a human conceived spot, produced spot, to then AI into the 30, which I think is a really interesting balance of the two disciplines coming together, if you like, the human with the AI. Really, really interesting.
I love that. All right, we are going to now talk about media. So our three companies are up for a lion together. We have the video submission for that, and we would love to play that video now as well.
The open web has become the ad slums of the internet. So much so that the ANA reports as much as 30% of digital ad spend budgets are wasted. Advertisers assume platforms are filtering low-quality sites, but instead it's a messy, crowded wasteland of pop-ups. All in the name of scale, we've traded value for volume. The problem is today's curation solutions aren't built for performance. They rely on broad, domain-level targeting, use stale data, and aren't built for specific campaign goals.
We've undergone significant shifts to pare down some of our partnerships. While they might have been helping to drive visits, they weren't necessarily leading to conversions in the end.
Since both real estate and advertising are all about location, 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 our solution was to filter out all those horrific made-for-advertising sites and instead use billions of signals to find the highest quality content where real people are making real home buying decisions.
But something that would take an eternity to accomplish can now be pulled off with our AI curation tool at the speed of the market. So instead of chasing clicks, we invested in digital curb appeal. Instead of settling for black box bidding, we took the algorithm directly to the sell side to eliminate unnecessary hops, decision at the page level, and gain more transparency and control.
Really what we're finding is that it's driving both efficiency in terms of lower CPAs, but it's also 5 to 6 times more effective.
We're talking smarter spending, more conversions, and a strategy built to close, not just collect views.
Our job is not done until the message is landed and the consumer understands it.
Our AI tool scores every page of digital content, literally billions, and aligns with Zillow's KPIs and enhanced user engagement. Higher quality, stronger outcomes, and a healthier ad ecosystem.
Nice. Okay, so those results are the kind of results a lot of people say, like, heck, that's like a little too good to be true. 30% better performance, 6 times the leads. So is it real?
Oh, it certainly is real. Now, the key point here is there is an explosion of content happening around the spectrum, right? With the advent of all the tools, the technology, and so forth. And for brands like us, where we actually place our media, we want to be careful that we are actually placing it in the best possible place, where it is relevant to the customer that we are trying to reach, and to making sure that we get the maximum return out of it in terms of brand metrics or in the lower funnel metrics that we eventually measure the success thereof. And what we have noticed is being clear on what content is high quality and is relevant to our customers, and placing it there is the magic. And that reduction in cost per acquisition or action, whatever is the action we're measuring, versus the ROI, actually, if you see that cost went down and ROI went up, that is like phenomenal. And that comes down to identifying good quality content versus not. And that, to me, is the future of the AI world that we're getting into. All of these search engines / chatbots that we will eventually be replaced with will be very, very good at identifying good content versus not.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think performance is a mindset. I hated the idea that there was a group of people suddenly calling themselves performance agencies. We say we're the performance-minded, and I think Ravi believes in that as well. Performance runs across brand, and it runs obviously hardcore at the bottom of the funnel as well. But I think this is an example where we took AI and applied it to a universal application. We wanted to say, higher quality, could we, through the algorithm, through the work with Chalice, who are amazing partners of Canvas, we've got many of these examples, we wanted to solve a business problem. There was just too much BS in a lot of digital. We know that it's, the dirty secret is that there's a lot of nefarious agents which you're clicking on, but they're not high quality. So we wanted to prove out that we could add quality to the dimension. And through Chalice's algorithms and AI work, we were able to literally create, not just for Zillow, and Zillow was brave enough to take this bold move, but it's actually a universal truth. It will be really interesting by actually doing this and going for much higher quality. We are proving out that higher quality will increase engagement, will increase clicks and performance. So I think it's one of those ones where I say, arguably it's hygiene, going back to the application, it's hygiene because we're trying to, I call it like cleaning up the digital ecosystem. But it's hero because at the end of the day, it's all about can we actually prove out by doing this that we can reach a better case study. And Ravi obviously has a very visionary board, and I think, sparing a bit of blushes, that part of that video was actually presented to your board, where we were actually showing marketing's role. And I think that's another whole conversation about, the role of marketing in not being a cost, but being, a proven performance driver.
Yeah, I think too, as intuitively as marketers, we know high quality places are where our best customers are, right? And for over a decade now, we see the opposite in our reports, right? Like low funnel, cheap inventory is where the results are. And so it's amazing to see AI finally show that if you can really get the mix of moment, right person, right message, it can deliver in a high quality environment. Okay, so we are going to move to our third and final, which is frontline operations. So this is the part that gets everyone a little, nervous. But I don't think either of you shy away from thinking about both how it transforms as well as elevates your people. So Ravi, why don't you start by telling us about like the tools and training you're using and how you're thinking about your org design as you move forward in the world of AI.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the beginning of the conversation, if all of these tech and tools do not make us better in how we serve our customers, then we have missed the mark, right? So that is the entire ethos of how we at Zillow run our business. So the litmus test in all of this was when our humans, so there are many, right, people who interface directly with the customer, and the one example I'll use is the loan officer. So we have a financing arm that actually gives out home loans. And when those loan officers are intersecting with these first-time home buyers, how are they interfacing with them? Are they helping them move forward by getting to the home that they want? It used to be a lot of grunt work for these loan officers to go look at the spreadsheets, understand the customer, figuring out what their offers are, what the homes they're interested in, and then figuring out how to move them forward. Fast forward, we actually split the team into 60-40, and 60% of the loan officers had access to the tools, wherein the first thing they log in, they actually see a collage of information on top customers, what their priorities are, what kind of homes they're looking at, what their affordability is, and how this particular loan officer can help them get the loan and the home, right? And what we noticed was these loan officers were using the time to be with the customers. They were understanding their needs. They were actually being human in understanding what their personal needs are and then helping them also guide them in the right direction. And those loan officers had a much higher, obviously, productivity from a conversion standpoint. They were obviously closing more loans, but also their customer satisfaction rate was way higher than the loan officers that were not using some of these technology and tools. That to me is one very tangible use case of how AI and tools can help us become more human as brands and the experience that we deliver. Paul?
Yeah, I love those examples because it seems like that is what ultimately AI can do. I call it the hygiene, but obviously what would otherwise be prep time, rote work, many hours of, or maybe even worse than that, actually going into a call and not being prepared to understand the motivations of that individual. So obviously taking that and actually synthesizing it and allowing people in the front line to actually do what frontline should do, building human relationships, doing the transaction. I love the statistic, actually. I'm just going to have a conversation. I can get into the operational side, but I love the fact that, tell us a little bit about the overall reach of Zillow in any 1 month, and then the transaction. It's a fascinating equation to show the opportunity. Zillow is an amazing company, but when you look at that statistic that you're going to talk about.
The statistic Paul is referring to is on a monthly basis, we have about 233 million unique users on our site that are spending considerable amount of time.
Can I ask a show of hands? Show of hands. who goes to or has a communication with Zillow? Yeah, look. I call it porn, but
I was just at lunch with a woman who said
I'm going to get censored. House porn.
She says she scrolls more on Zillow than Instagram.
Yeah.
She was dead serious.
It's unbelievable. I mean,
that
literally, as a media company, if you think of the eyeballs, you'd be one of the top 5 companies on the web. Sorry.
Yes. No, absolutely. Great point. The challenge, however, is if you think about home buying journey, there are only about 5 million transactions in any given year. So you can think of the drop-off in the funnel from 233 million unique users to 5, and being clear in terms of the data, technology to identify and separate out different customers. Like if you're a dreamer, we want to be the best place where you come in to actually consume that content. But if you're a serious home buyer or renter, we want to be putting relevant content in front of you. And that, to me, is the opportunity in how brands become more human.
Yeah, and I think it's just so exciting to be on the journey with Zillow to obviously start closing that gap, because obviously it's becoming the universal application for renting and buying as well. So obviously mortgages and advice and guidance through the whole journey. But it's been an amazing journey. So, the hygiene aspects of operational efficiency is critical to every company. I mean, obviously AI is going to be really profound. So just to dive a little bit deeper, we're spending a lot of time and money trying to understand both the interoperability of AI tools. We're trying to stitch together as best we can the different applications to actually enhance humans. So it comes back to how do we actually, and I love the word co-pilot. I hate the fact that Microsoft has appropriated and branded co-pilot. I actually have been using this as a term. AI tools are co-pilots for teams, not just individuals. We as individuals, I think, should be diving into the applications, playing with them. Ravi's team is given total carte blanche to build agents, to actually experiment. And I've actually learned a lot from Ravi in saying, I've got to let go. I've got to actually know when to say yes, not the lawyers saying no.
That is a perfect moment.
The lawyers are, at the operational, because obviously there are always concerns, and obviously a lot of them are data related. But we're really working very, very hard on interoperability. And I think there's a lot of misnomers. There's a lot of these quotes by people spending $500 million here, 300,000. I actually think a lot of companies are spending $500 million solving their historical problems. I believe that as an incumbent, kind of a company that's really 10 years old this year, we've been able to actually start without having to re-engineer our systems. So a lot of larger corporations are using AI money to kind of re-engineer what they did. And I think that's the incumbents. All I'll say is in operations, I'm fascinated by, I call them the incumbents versus the challengers. The challengers were the 21st century brands like Zillow that were often built on technology. They have much less, they have an engineering mindset. So their issue, I think, is to try and be more human.
Right.
Because they're actually, heretically yesterday on the Microsoft stage, I said, you're run by a load of engineers. I wish you could be a bit more human on stage. I don't think they'll ever invite me back. But I meant it with great sincerity. And then the incumbents are those 100-year-old brands that were built on humans, and they were often products, services. They were Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, and they're kind of trying to become technology. So they were quite, they understood the faith of a brand, and we're going, but when you look at the operationalization of it, it's very different, isn't it? It's about your psychographic as well as actually your muscle memory and how you were built over time. So it's kind of fascinating. I like to say there's a messy middle, and I will pass it back to Ali. The messy middle is where the challengers go up to be more human. The messy middle is when you have to learn about brand, and you have to, because you may have built your early existence on performance, so to speak. And what does a brand mean today? Being human and empathetic. And then equally, obviously, you're seeing the arms race the other way. Procter & Gamble trying to be a technology company when they sell packaged goods. It's like interesting. So I find that the ologies, the ology of the psychology, sociology of brands, very interesting as well in this AI age.
Absolutely. We are getting time from Brand Innovators.
Okay.
I feel like we could talk all day about this. We should do a podcast after this.
Okay, let's do it.
Right?
Let's do it.
Thank you so much, Paul and Ravi. This was great.
Thank you, Ali.
Thank you.
Thank you.